all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my pain, that you would bear my cross. You lay down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King that conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You lay down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. All that you've done for me. All your ways are good, all your ways are sure. I will trust in you alone, higher than my sight, high above my life. I will trust in you alone, in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah. Light into the world, light into my life. I will live for you alone. You're the one I seek, knowing I will find all I need in you alone, in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah. soul. In you there's joy, unending joy. And I will follow. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah. I am not what I make, I am who you have made me to be. I am not what I've done, I am loved unconditionally. I am not loved by the measure of love that I bring. I am not who I know, I am known by the King of all kings. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. You are maker made visible, holding the world in your hands. You are patient and merciful, giver of grace without end. Satisfied simply by being who you've always been. You are infinite love, and you prove it again and again. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. In you I am created, in you I am sustained, with you I'm resurrected, you overcame the grave, with you I stand in victory, now what else could I need? With you I want for nothing. Jesus, my everything. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. Jesus, you are enough. for me.
Mic is on. Good morning, everyone. Most of you know me by now, but if you don't, my name is Heather. I am Pastor Gene's wife, and you know it's my turn to be up here when he's in shorts and I'm in a collared shirt. So I take care of a lot of the administration at the church as well, and I get the opportunity to share a message with you from time to time. Last week, Gene was up here, and he did something remarkable, and what I heard, someone who's been in church their entire life never heard in church, the Sermon on the Mount and the Plain, all the way through. So he discussed that with you last week and coming to Jesus soberly and said, Heather's going to share her story. So here I am. When I first came to C3 about 10 years ago, I met with the pastor and discussed with him about getting baptized. And he said, it's your decision, so go home and pray about it and let me know, what God says. I'm like, all right. So I got in my car the next day, I prayed about it overnight, and I had a bit of a Transformers moment.
Can you talk? XM satellite radio. Visual cable broadcasting system. So you talk through the radio? You're wonderful. So what was that last night? What was that?
What are you, like an alien or something?
Any more questions you want to ask?
I chose that because that's how God answered me. I asked him, should I get baptized? And so I got in my car the next morning, turned on the radio. Now, to give you a background story, when I first bought my car down here, I had to have a convertible, get it out of my system. And I got XM radio, which is why that was a funny clip. And on number 3, I put on The Message. And I'm like, this is a really positive radio station, not knowing at all that it was a Christian radio station. So, of course, I have that tuned in. I'm a hardcore Christian now. I got to listen to that all the time. And so I turn on my car, and the first note came on of redeemed. Exactly. I'm like, okay, that must be a sign. That's probably a yes. So I continue down the road, and then the DJ introduces the next song. He says, we don't normally play secular music, but we're going to make an exception this morning and debut a song. So it's the first time they've ever played it, from Rascal Flatts. The singer just got baptized and wrote a song about it. Go figure. So the first lines of the song were, I came up out of the water, raised my hand up to the Father. I probably should have pulled over because I was just bawling at that moment. I'm like, okay, God, I hear you, fine, it's a yes. Like somehow I'm like absolved from getting baptized. Like, no, Heather, not you, everyone else is okay. You don't need to get baptized in the name of God, you're good. So not only did I get baptized once, I got it twice because I really needed good washing. And that's why I'm going to share my story with you today. So I've been a member here for almost a decade now. And as you've heard, I'm going to tell you about my come to Jesus sober moment. And I know for many of us, we carry our scars, some of us from the past on the outside. But for me, I carried them mainly on the inside, which made it really, really easy for me to hide my wounds. How many of us like to look our best on a Sunday morning? I know when I'm up here on camera, that's my main goal. You go to your closet, pick out your clothes. Wives usually like coordinate, make sure your husband looks good. Figure out, am I going to the beach after service? Am I watching the kids? Am I making coffee? Like, you really have to think it through. So, I'm going to show you a clip about looking good first thing in the morning.
Oh dear, I can't let her see me looking like this. I've got to put on my morning mask. I'll be right there, George. Hi, Lord. Hey, darling, don't you look lovely? How do you do it? Listen, we were hoping you and George could drop in this afternoon. Oh, we'd love to, Gloria. But George and I are going shopping for a new car. A new car? Oh, isn't that wonderful? Oh, Jane, dear, I'm so happy for you.
What are you thinking your mask off, honey?
You're very, very funny, George Jetson.
So is that so poignant for today, the world we're living in with Zoom calls and phone calls all by mask? Wish I had that in the morning, put on that morning mask. I know a Zoom call, everyone makes sure they're good from the waist up. Jean showed a video of what some people do when they forget to dress from the waist down. I know as a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing, that you'd be able to video call. And honestly, it's the last thing I want to do now, especially because it's what I have to do. I love doing the opposite of what I'm supposed to do most of the time. Part of my problem. Anyway, having a morning mask would definitely be a lot easier getting out the door and or Zoom calls that we have nowadays. But I don't know about all of you, but I lived most of my life professionally putting on that mask, putting on the perfect mask of what I wanted you to see, the version of me I wanted to project out, and only letting those closest to me see me, like Jane Jetson without my mask. Sorry, Jean. So this morning, as I said, I'm going to tell you my story, letting you know me, real church for real people, and how in the world can I expect you to let your guard down if I can't do it myself? And I know I can be an intimidating person. I run around really fast, always have things to do. It's part of being an administrator, I'm sure. Some of you can relate. But probably I'm more afraid of most of you than you are of me. And a couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of becoming a pastor's wife, something that I definitely would never have expected to happen in a million years. That's not something as a little girl I go, you know what, when I grow up, I'm going to be a pastor's wife someday, getting all groomed like I'm going to be a king someday. Nope, that's not how that happened. Only God. Then the lead pastor's wife. Great. Nice transformation. But with that, I feel that I have the responsibility to lead by example. And unfortunately, I know that being the lead pastor's wife comes with unrealistic expectations, so I'm going to smash those for you this morning. And I want to take a second for you to envision what you think a perfect pastor's wife looks like. Any celebrity now, if you've done this quiz before, do not cheat, or who have seen my notes. All right. Does everyone have an idea? Okay. All right. Generally, when I think of the perfect pastor's wife, I think of a combination of three women. Picture perfect woman number one, June Cleaver. The picture perfect 50s wife, mom, housewife, the best dressed cook you've ever seen, someone who wears pearls making breakfast. I know I have never done that. I don't even own an apron. Nope. Picture perfect woman number two, Mother Teresa. Enough said, I'm not even close, and I'm not even going to try. Picture perfect woman number three, Wonder Woman. And I feel I have the most in common with Wonder Woman, mostly because I used to beat boys up for a living. And what my mom tells me, I've been doing that since I was 2 years old and got taught professionally by my lovely husband. So again, this morning I'd like to smash your expectations because this is real church for real people. And I'm going to show you what your real church for real people pastor's wife looks like. So quick summary of my childhood. I was born and raised in California. Luckily, I got out. My parents were married, but were also teenagers. They were only 16 and 19 when they had me. It didn't work with them, and by the time I was 2, they were divorced, and I was living with my dad. I moved around a lot as a kid with my aunts and my older cousins. Those were the boys that I was beating up when I was 2, by the way. And by the time I was 4, my dad and I lived with my grandparents, where he met and married my stepmother, who lived next door. And from the point that they had gotten married, I did not have the opportunity to speak to or see my mother until I was 20 years old. And to briefly summarize my childhood, there were good times, there were bad times, like anyone else, but to mostly summarize it, Cinderella, without any of the gory details, stepmother, younger siblings. And unfortunately, growing up, I felt less than and constantly struggled to find a place to fit in. 12-year-old Heather with younger brothers, perfect 90s hat. I don't use that much hairspray anymore. But the problem with pictures, much like our Facebook and social media, is we often hide the pain and the hurt. You put on a smile and pretend that everything's okay. And all those years of faking it for me, leading people to believe that everything was great, finally built up. And I fell into depression in my teens, and at times even suicidal. And between my 9th and 10th grade year, I had gained a tremendous amount of weight, and I went from being in shape and athletic, participating in sports, to obese in less than 3 months. And from that point on, I've struggled with my weight. Making matters worse, I was one of only a handful of girls in my high school who were obese, and I went to high school in the Valley where a handful of girls were on the cover of my favorite magazines, just rubbing in that insecurity. It's fantastic. But luckily, I made it through high school all in one piece. I got good grades, because that was my only ticket out of my situation, was to get into college. And so I got into a couple of colleges in California and a couple in New York. And now, most of you, I'm obviously in Florida right now, so you're probably wondering, how in the world did she get from California to New York and then Florida? Well, my stepmother was from New York. She was born and raised there. And we went to visit her relatives when I was 17. In California, I didn't have a reason to fly because you can drive everywhere to see all the wonderful things. And so I finally got on a plane for the first time at 17 years old in October and flew to New York. And who does not fall in love with the leaves changing in October in New York? So at that point, I realized in my heart that New York would be my new home. So I graduated high school. We moved cross country. 2 dogs, 2 little brothers, a U-Haul truck, and an SUV. It's a wonderful trip to take, but not in those circumstances. I tell you, it's great to see the country that way, but choose your circumstances wisely. I had a choice to stay in California because of the colleges that I had gotten into, but there was just something inside of me that told me that I needed to be in New York. So I moved with my family, decided to go to Marist College. And I know now that that was God telling me that I had to move. I didn't then, and I'm really glad that I listened. So that summer we moved, and by that fall, I had started college. I moved out. I moved into the dorms at Marist at 17 years old, and from that point on, I was officially on my own. A couple $100s to my name, no car, no driver's license, and most everything I owned fit in my dorm room. Luckily, it didn't take long till Jean's younger sister introduced us. And about a year later, we started dating, and we have been together now for over 20 years. So you can do the math on that one. So now, one thing you should know about me is I have a drive to prove other people wrong. Tell me to do one thing, and I'm going to say, I'll show you. So once on my own, I sought to find value in the world. Growing up feeling less than, I sought out success through titles, weight loss, making money, anything that would make me feel of worth. I looked for it all in the material world. As I mentioned before, I was overweight as a teen in high school. Food was my first drug of choice. But I had not lost my love for doing literally anything athletic and competitive. So after Gene and I were together, as you saw in the picture, he taught me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I got into self-improvement and lost a ton of weight. And I was the first one in my family in decades to break many obstacles and chains that were not in my favor. Getting through high school without getting pregnant, graduating college, getting married, and then having a baby. I broke all of those chains and overcame them considering all of the odds were stacked against me. You know what the wonderful thing about God is? None of that matters in his world. Not at all. When I look back, I realize it wasn't me who broke those chains. That was my ego telling me that it was me, when it was God who paved the path, because I was definitely not a perfect teenager or young youth in my 20s, and my behavior could have definitely derailed any one of those chains. Finally graduated college, got married, became a middle school history teacher of 7th grade. That was fun. There's a reason I don't do it anymore. I went on to earn my master's degree while helping build our business, and the success of our business that we built together and being a well-paid New York teacher allowed me access to all material things in order to fill that black hole void that was inside of me, trying to find my purpose. I began to fill it with all of the things of this world. Unfortunately, none of it worked. Shoes, booze, handbags, fast cars, degrees, money, titles. Absolutely nothing could fill that void. And now that you know Sophie, she is much taller than me. FYI, I'm wearing 6-inch heels in that picture, and she's still taller than me. Later on, I learned, though, that I have a disease that does not discriminate, a disease of more, a disease that tells me that I do not have a disease. What can I say? I have an addictive personality. However, that addiction has many forms for me. The first one was overeating, and the major one that led me to my come to Jesus sober moment and my sober baptism was my addiction to alcohol. The American Medical Association finally deemed alcoholism a disease in 1956, and is defined as a disease by most medical associations, including the American Medical Association and the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Like diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, addiction is caused by a combination of behavioral, environmental, and biological factors. As alcoholism is an addiction, it is considered a disease of the brain. The brain has been physically altered by extended exposure to alcohol, causing it to function differently and therefore creating addictive behavior. It is described with a prolonged period of frequent, heavy alcohol use, the inability to control drinking once it has begun, physical dependence manifested by withdrawal symptoms when the individual stops using alcohol, tolerance or the need to use more and more alcohol to achieve the same effects, a variety of social and/or legal problems arising from alcohol use. Now, I should have known when I was younger, but it was excused away by youth and having fun like everyone else. I'd drink during hard times, drink during good times, but eventually became any time. I did stop long enough to have a healthy baby girl. Aw, baby Sophie. Love to embarrass her up here. Sorry, kid. But it didn't take long for me to pick it back up again. Once again, I was enabled by my environment and continued on my path of drinking because I was not as bad as others. I eventually resigned from my teaching job and helped run the business full-time, being self-employed and my own boss because Jean really can't tell me what to do, allowing my disease to take a much stronger hold. We did build the business. Despite my addiction, it almost seemed like the more I drank, the more successful we became. The business grew to 3 locations and over 400 students. I loved training a lot. I loved working a lot. Workaholic, go figure, same root, different branch. It allowed me to feel a sense of control over my environment. Again, beating up boys for a living. So we sold part of our business and relocated to Naples. Again, that nagging feeling in my gut telling me, like when I went to New York, that we were meant to live in Naples. Again, I thought it was just intuition, knowing now that it was God confirming our decision. So we came to Naples and we had big plans to build an MMA empire. Because at the time, doing MMA competition in Florida was legal and it was not in New York. So we're like, great, we're gonna find all these, build our empire. And it all came crashing down in less than 1 month when I got rear-ended at a stoplight. The injuries were not on the surface, they were internal in my hip and in my back. But it was at that moment that everything that I thought made me me on paper was gone. Training, working out, lifting heavy stuff, beating up boys for a living, all gone. Now let me ask you a question. Do you guys say bad words? Especially in season driving in Naples? I know I do if I'm being honest. I'm better than I used to be, but I'm still working on it. Progress, not perfection. What do you consider to be a bad word? There's a lot of them. We've got damn, crap, suck. And I'm going to tell you a really bad word this morning. The mother of all bad words. A 4-letter word. I'm going for it. Help. No. Jean would have me. Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine if I actually said that word. He's on the edge of his seat every time I'm up here just to make sure I don't swear. No, I had to ask for help. Not me, not at that time. Asking for help made you look weak, incapable, less than, and unqualified. And unfortunately, that would not be the last time that I would have to ask for help. Not just with surface stuff, heavy lifting and getting groceries out of my car. God stripped all things from me and finally made me get to the root of my problem. Only I didn't know it yet. So we settled into Naples. We moved into a picture-perfect gated community. There's not a lot of those in New York. I'm kind of isolated on a hill. So we move into a neighborhood full of kids playing in the street, neighbors knocking on the door. We're like hiding because we don't even know how to react. We had arrived in suburbia, and we thought we had everything. I thought the problem was helping Gene survive his new habitat. And so in my opinion at that time, there are usually 2 places you go when you need help: therapy or church. So I got on the phone, and I found Gene a therapist, because he really needed help adapting. Funny thing was, he was not the problem. I need 3 fingers back at me. I was the problem. So we went to several sessions together, and then she said, Heather, I'd like to see you alone. Okay, great, we're going to talk about Gene. No. And at one of those sessions, she sat me down and said, Heather, so you think you have a drinking problem? And I kid you not, this is literally what I said to her. Nope. I have a consumption problem. If I learn how to control my drinking like I control eating ice cream, I'll be just fine. Wow, the river of denial is long, and I was on it. And that was the last time I ever went to see her. Calling me out. And since I am here now, I'm sure you realize that we took Path B Church, or I wouldn't be standing here right now, much less sober. So after much Googling for a non-denominational church, yes, I Googled, it took a lot of digging, I found C3 Church. And this has been our home church for almost a decade now. And when we came in looking for community, I really just had a belief in God, and I did not have a relationship with Jesus. But I knew that that's where you go when you need help. Didn't know that I was definitely going to get it when I arrived. And it was here at C3 that I met sober women for the first time at an embrace group. And they talked about their sobriety, smiling nonetheless. And I was like, you don't say that out loud. Keep that under the rug. You don't share that with people. But I'm so grateful that they shared their story with me, because it was the work of those women and the pastor at the time that shed light into my darkness and helped me step out into the light. It was not overnight. It took years, many meetings, lots and lots of apologies, until I finally asked him for help. I just couldn't accept the fact that I was an addict until the last day of my drinking, that it was so out of control. I knew I had disappointed my family, my pastor, my friends, literally everyone who had been trying to help me dig me out of that hole. I couldn't sleep that night and tried to figure out, okay, what do I do now? And I finally got on my knees, face firmly planted on my floor in the middle of the night. I finally surrendered and asked him for help, because I couldn't do it on my own. And it was from that moment that I surrendered on my knees that the compulsion to drink has been lifted from me, and I've had the gift of sobriety ever since. You're applauding God, because if that were my power, I would not be here. That is all him, 100%. No human power could take that away from me, only his. So now, if that wasn't a big enough miracle in itself, I'm going to add some icing on the cake. That year was the 1-year anniversary of Gene's Come to Jesus moment. I was sitting in one of my meetings, reading through one of our books, and I underlined a sentence about letting the grace of God enter me. And I wrote down the date and realized that was the same date as Gene. Everyone was like, is everything okay? I'm like, these are happy tears. There are 2 miracles. And only God could have orchestrated that, giving me the blessing of the gift of sobriety for 6.5 years now. But I'm still relearning how to get comfortable in my skin again. Gene has recently been talking about coming to Jesus sober, reciting the Sermon on the Mount in the plane last Sunday. I told you I had a couple of baptisms, the first one before I got sober, actually both of them before I got sober. The first one on the beach, the one that's, from the beginning of the story. I celebrated. I told you I drank during good times. So I went home and got drunk that night. Yay, I got baptized. I love Jesus. Because I wasn't baptized as a kid, and that was my proclamation. And so on the 1-year anniversary of my baptism, I went ahead and did it again. Almost made it an anniversary affair. I'm just going to get baptized every year, just wash me clean every year and eat it. But I continue to struggle with my sobriety. I believed in Jesus. I loved Jesus. But for me, the true sense of my real baptism happened the night that I surrendered and the Holy Spirit entered me on April 30th of 2014. So now that I've shared my sober come to Jesus moment, taken off that mask, actually, if I really did, I wouldn't wear any makeup this morning, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I've gotten really real with you. I would really like to encourage everyone here that everyone's moment is their own. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes slowly. And in the world that we're living in today, it is so much easier to point a finger at everyone else, saying, I'm not as bad as so-and-so. That's what kept me in my disease for so many years, was comparing rather than identifying. But when I went to the rooms for the first time, a wise old guy said to me, are you done yet? What? Yet. Okay. You're eligible too. Yet. You haven't lost your house yet. You haven't lost your family yet. You haven't lost your job yet. You haven't lost your life yet. You're eligible too. That was a sobering moment, for sure. And for me, sobriety doesn't have to be a substance abuse. Same root, different branch. For me, I could escape into anything. Office supplies can become an addiction for me. No kidding. I think I have every color staple and or paperclip that exists at Staples. As I said, I'm still working on it. But it's also about emotional sobriety as well. And I find that through Christ, once I came to him for help, I've been able to work towards that emotional sobriety, catch myself when I'm in that addiction. It doesn't have to be alcohol. I can turn it into anything. And as I said before, I'm definitely not perfect. Not at all. It is about progress, not perfection. We live in a culture in America that has an ideal that cultivates the addiction of more. More streaming videos, more this, more phones, everything is more. We are enabled by our culture to be addicted to just about anything. And as Jean said before, we live in a world where we pride ourselves in breaking the Sabbath, not even taking one day off a week. Americans have the most unused vacation times out of anyone in the world. And we pride ourselves in that. Are we better than God who took a day off? I know I'm not. Consumerism has crept its way into Christianity. We have to keep our eye on what the word says and not on what we think it says. Because God has got it. We have to let go and let God. And in a world of self-help, it is a constant battle for us as Americans to learn how to lean on and rely on God as his children. He's given us the formula to live. Jean said, our program book, it's the Bible. That's our program book. We have everything we need to know is in there. He showed us how to survive in the wilderness for 40 days. And as I said before, everyone's come to Jesus moment is their own. Your relationship with him is solely your own. We all have issues. We all have problems. Vices, worries, regrets, horror stories, horrible things that you may have done to other people, horrible things that may have been done to you. No one's perfect. Absolutely no one. If we were capable of being perfect, we definitely wouldn't need Jesus. And what God does for us is he takes our mess and turns it into our message. And we at C3 here are here for you no matter where you are in your journey. Because that is what the church did for me, and we will do for you. We're here to carry each other's burdens, because your load is lighter when I carry it, and mine is lighter when you carry mine. Galatians 6:1-9. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. You think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. Those who are taught the word of God should provide for their teachers, sharing all good things with them. Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You'll always harvest what you plant. And those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially those in the family of faith. When we have to step over a valley, the others help build a bridge for us. God makes sure we don't have to do it alone. We have that vertical relationship with him, but also our horizontal relationship with one another in the church body. And what any sin, any disease, or any issue you have that you're dealing with in the dark, he wants you alone. Especially in the world right now. We're fortunate in Florida, but with shut-ins and people on their own, it is the devil's making right now to keep people isolated and alone. That is the last place any of us need to be. And sometimes the scariest thing to do is use that four-letter word again. Help. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't think so at the time. But it finally allowed the light to shine in my darkness of years of isolation, depression, hopelessness, feeling empty and purposeless. Being a child of God, we're here to hold a hand out for you, throw you that life preserver. But you have to be the one to grab it. I know at first I did not want it at all. I was drowning in the hurricane. People kept throwing it to me. I'm like, nope, I've got it. I really like drowning over here. Leave me alone. I kept throwing it back over and over again. But you know what? I eventually got tired of drowning. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I finally allowed others in. I was like, fine, you can pull me in the boat. And most importantly, I also let Jesus in. And my church. We are a real church for real people. Remember, come as you are, but don't stay as you are. I know I didn't, and thank goodness I didn't. I wouldn't be sober, I might not even be alive, and I would not be standing here today. And I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm proud of what God has done for me, turning something truly shameful and embarrassing, and allowing me the opportunity to help others in need, and allow others to help me. Because sometimes asking for help is the hardest thing. It was for me, and guess what? It still is. Those of you who know me well. Heather, I'm like, you need help? I'm like, no, I've got it. No, please, let me help you. Fine. Like I said, progress, not perfection. But I've got it. Those 3 words can be the deadliest words you ever say. It's okay to let people help you. You are not a burden. Do not feel guilty. Sometimes you're helping them more than they're helping you. And so ask yourself, have you had your sober come to Jesus moment? As I said before, if you haven't, don't worry. It'll come in his time. But be sure not to ignore the hand when it comes out to pull you out of the water. Please don't drown. Because he loves you, and we love you. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with your spirit. Amen.
Giving is a condition of the heart, and I think why we give is because of what God's given us. I mean, I believe fully that everything we've been given is God's. I mean, it's not like I'll give a little bit to God, but everything else is mine. It's all God's, and so giving is what we do. It's who we are. It's who we are as people. I love worshiping God with my heart and just like expressing my heart to him, but a massive way of doing that is the resources he's given me. And you think about, man, I want to worship Jesus. Well, then it's not just coming and singing. It's taking care of his people. It's taking care of his creation. It's taking care of his world. What you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. This is not just about, this is something you should do, a commandment of God. This is a heart position. The scripture says, Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so when we say we worship God, okay, well, where's our treasure? Where's our resources really going? Are those going into the kingdom of God?
right, stand and join us in worship again. I am not what I make, I am who you have made me to be. I am not what I've done, I am loved unconditionally. I am not loved by the measure of love that I bring. I am not who I know, I am known by the King of all kings. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. You are maker made visible, holding the world in your hands. You are patient and merciful, giver of grace without end. Satisfied simply by being who you've always been. You are infinite love and you prove it again and again. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. In you I am created. In you I am sustained. With you I'm resurrected. You overcame the grave. With you I stand in victory. And now what else could I need? With you I want for nothing. Jesus, my everything. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. Jesus, you are enough. Jesus, you are enough for me. With nothing, I still have everything. Jesus, you are enough for me. Thank you. We love you guys. Join us in the lobby this afternoon for pizza.